Hey everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Hey, we're here right the day before Thanksgiving, and we're going to be doing a apple pie and painting it in watercolor, and I'm going to change it up a little bit. This is the first time I did it today. We didn't have class today because it is Wednesday for one, and normally I have class on Wednesday, but not the Thursday class. Uh-oh. Hey, we're here right the day before Thanksgiving. Sorry about that. So here we go. And I don't have a beer. I was running around today and with my brother. My brother's moving, and so I had to help him a little bit move a couple things. And so I just went in and all I have is cream soda, Sprecher cream soda. And so Sprecher cream soda is from Wisconsin. It's a they make really cream soda with real sugar, fire brewed craft soda. So cream soda. It's gonna be very sweet, and they make root beer. They make cream, orange cream delight and stuff. And so they're a pop company or cream soda. It's not a pop, like some of us call it here. And so, cheers, everybody. Cheers. You're gonna be drinking a little bit more tomorrow. Oh, what the heck is in my glass? Like there's some dark in there. Cheers, everybody. What the heck do I have in there? Okay, we'll see. Cheers, everybody. Good cream soda. I'm not sure what these dark things are in there. So, cheers, everybody. I'm going to give that a 10 because if you like cream soda, Sprechers are a really good one to get. If you like soda and pop, get Sprecher. All right, so let's go really quickly. And I know it's Wednesday, but tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so we're going to be here and doing some fun, having a fun time. And so let's go to our supplies real quick. Let's hurry up. My supplies are my Holbein watercolors, my brushes, which are also from Holbein, but they have my name on it. And we're actually using a board today. Not using the Stonehenge Aqua, but it's about the same when it comes to painting. All right, so let's go to our website and find everything on my website. If you're new here, thanks for coming. And so there is the pie. You just go right there and, press on that. And you can download it. It gives you a big picture of it, right? So just get that and I'll give you a nice big picture. Let's go to value study. And I didn't do this one yet, so you guys are the guinea pigs for me again this week. And I'm changing the pie around, and you're gonna see. It's kind of a weird pie. It looks like more like a cake. It has a big layer of like cream cheese or cream or cheesecake thing in there. And so I'm gonna make it a regular. So in the one area, I want to take and make it more like apples all the way through here, and drop down the top a little bit. I mean, it looks like a nice pie, but I'm just gonna make it look more apple pie and with like a lace top of it. So I drew that instead. And my value studies are very simple, right? Everything around the pie, the plate, and the cup are my darks, and everything back here. We have a few darks back here, but not gonna be quite as dark as that. And so I'm gonna keep this up in the front, and this over here. I'm gonna maybe put a little bit of color there and show the table a little bit, but not so important. It's gonna be a pie. It's about the pie and the fork and the cup, and I'm gonna probably put a little bit of steam in the coffee. I may actually put some coffee in that cup too, though it's kind of high up there. We'll see. All right, let's go. Wow, everybody's here on a Wednesday. I can't believe you all remembered on a Wednesday. I never do it on a Wednesday. Well, I do when it's Thanksgiving next day. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. Why is the whole pie dark? Because it's in shadow. And so let's go back there. I'm going to explain that. So it is all dark because it's going to be dark. That's the part of your dark. So just as long as this area right here, as long as this area, I know it's light here and has cream cheese, but it cannot be as light as this area. You have to keep it darker than these areas. It doesn't have to be black. Of course, it's not going to be black because this is just the no tan. It's just as long as this is darker than my light area. That's all that means. Like you don't have to go. I can keep it lighter, but I cannot keep it as light as the background. And that's one of the things I really want to bring across when you're designing. And I was thinking about that in the shower this morning. Really weird. But I was thinking, I wonder how many of you, and I would actually like to ask you guys, how many of you actually do this? How many of you actually do the value study and understand what I'm doing when I'm doing the design of it? Because it's like number two importance for me to know what I have to do for my painting. That's how I get them done so quickly, because I know that all this stuff in here doesn't have to be this dark. It doesn't have to be black, but it does have to be darker than any of my lights. So you want to really separate those lights and darks. The cup is not going to be this dark. It's not going to be black. And I should have made it even darker so that it was all black. But it's just as long as it's darker than this area around here. That's all that matters, is that it's darker. And so it could be lighter like this, but nothing in this light area then can be as dark as that. You got to separate those two. You got to separate it. I don't care if it's just a little bit, but it's got to be separated. So that's why, Maria. It's funny that you asked that. So, because I was really thinking about that this morning, and because every once in a while I think about what I'm going to write about, and I was wondering how many of you actually do use my advice in doing a value study, or just even taking the notanizer. A lot of people have that on their phone, and really look at the lights and darks of the actual scene, because that is number two. Number one is good drawing, and that's the number one thing. You have to have a good drawing, and then after that is notanizer. So that's why I do it. Let's have some more cream soda. Wow, it is really good for cream soda, for a soda. Oh, it's made with honey. No wonder it tastes so good. All right, and so we're going to do our lights. And so our lights, will determine then how dark my darks have to be. And that's why I do that. It's just so you can do the value study and know what value you have to put there. And then you can regulate that light value to the dark value. I try to paint a value study before the main painting, mostly as a warm-up for the main event. Yeah, and actually that's what I do on Thursdays. Usually I do a painting before that's in color. It's not even a value study. And I use my black and white image that I use to draw from. That is also my value sketch, but not as good as when I make a no-tan out of it, because the no-tan really shows you the black and white of it, and not so much about the middle tone, because you have to decide on the middle tone. Like this cup is a middle tone, but I have to decide that that is going to be in the dark area. And is there enough light on here? Let me break the light a little bit lighter, because I turned it down before. Just make it a little bit lighter. Sorry about that. I rushed in here today, and it's a little bit brighter. There we go. A little bit lighter, I think. So what are we going to do for a wash in the background? And because the background is going to be light, right, along with the table, and I didn't even put a spot in there, and I can go into these other areas knowing that I'm going to put the light on top of that. So I'm just going to wet the whole thing. I'm just going to wet the whole thing. I'm just going to wet the whole thing, because it doesn't matter. My darks are going to go on top of that. And most of it is light, and the pie, I can get some of those colors in there right away. I'm just going to wet it all evenly. And I like to let it sit there a little bit too, so it soaks in a little bit. And so I'm just going to wet everything. Because actually I like the first wash by having it all wet in the wet and just making a light color, because then I can do a really neat wash, and it can be a fun wash. It could be doing all that watercolor stuff that watercolor does, like dripping, and I can raise it up a little bit, let it float down. What do I want to do back there? I mean, it's pretty boring right here, so I'm not going to do it like that. I'm not just going to make it white and just leave it like that. I'm going to make it something a little bit more special than that. And this paper, always get these damn dots. I can't swear. so let's see. I'm going to do a warm background, cool background. Let's do a cool background and then a warm foreground. I am using a board. Yep, I am using a board. I sometimes do a mini value study, but if I don't, I will make my pick, black, and white on my phone. Oh, pick black and white on the phone. Okay, okay, I get it. I will make my picture black and white on my phone. Yeah, it's a really good thing to do, to make it, again. Look at how I'm getting dots in here. Oh darn. Yeah, this board, I don't know. I got a bad thing, because look at all these lines coming in. Look at all these dots coming in there now. If you can see that, and that's not a good thing. I want to make it a fun. I'm gonna make it a fun background. I just want to. Just make it a little bit fun. That's a window. Yeah, it can be a window, but there could be stuff happening out there. And look at this board. I left it too long. Look at how that is getting all these little dots. So weird. Maybe a little lavender in there. I can go right into the pie. It doesn't matter. This is lights. These are my lights. I can do it on the top of. If I want to keep white in there, that's another different thing. If I want to keep white on the edge, but because I don't use masking fluid anymore, my white I just use paint at the end, and that's just me. You can use masking fluid first or later. And now for the color on the table. Look how light it is. It's just nice and light, and that's a little bit darker. I probably should have done that, but that's okay. We can just put a little bit more water there. Man, look at all those dots. Man, is that... I gotta talk to them about this paper, or this board. It's definitely not like the aluminum panel, because aluminum panels, I love those, but I can't afford to use one of those every Thursday, and every Thursday and Saturday. Hey, Jeff from Australia. Good morning. I always tell people that people are watching from, I love Sprecher root beer too. Yeah, root beer is great. Their root beer is really good. I try to paint my value say before the main event painting, mostly as a warm-up. Yeah, it's good to do that. It's very good to do that. And I'm kind of resting here because I'm just trying to figure out what I should do with this. I mean, I'm getting all these dots in there, and that means bad paper. I mean, it shouldn't do that. Watercolor paper should not do that. And I got a big a slew of this board at one time from, I think, Cheap Joe or Jerry's Artorama, one of the two. And I don't think it was a really good quality paper or board at the time or something. Or I must have got an old batch, because it will go away a little bit, but this is really disturbing when you're actually painting. So it looks like some of the sizing may have broken down. And you never know until you put water on. I guess I should, before I draw it on, put some water on there first, but what a pain in the butt that is. Some of the lights, and kind of trying to figure out if I can see what's going on here. And this is just my lights, my background, and I can get a few of these shadows, which are, you know, part of my darks. No, they're not. There's just still the lights, and I'll go back in here with darker little lines in there. These are just my lights, and now I got to get the color of my table and make it warm up here. The plate is going to be darker with reflections of maybe this blue, so maybe I put a little bit of the light blue inside the plate to regulate what that was there up there. Put a little bit on there. This fork is light, but it has a little bit of reflection. This is a metal fork, so I'm going to take the light right into the fork, because that color will come from up there. And that's why I do my lights first. You know, that's step one, is the lights and the colors. So that's all determined on what my value pattern is. So I know exactly what I want to paint, dark and light. It's just so simple when you do that with the Notan. You know exactly what you're going to paint, exactly. You don't know exact colors a lot of times. I kind of make that up as I go along. But I know where my darks are going to be. I know where my lights are going to be. And you have to know that as a watercolorist, because you need to get that in there first. Unless you're doing like really fine detail where you're doing every little thing, every little piece, and you just have to copy the photograph, then that's a little different. But I'm doing the whole thing as one big image. And I have to do the lights first. And why, and is the reason I do my value study. And even if I don't do a value study, I still think about that. Like I think about it when I'm doing my black and white. When I have my black and white picture, I still make sure I have that in my head, knowing how I'm going to start this thing. You have to know how to start it. I mean, you have to know what to do first and second and third. I'm going to get some worms over here for the table. And there's a big shadow underneath here. That'll be my darks. And look at that mess with the board. Holy smokes. Yeah, it's not good. And you notice how I don't put a line there to show the edge of the table. How important is that the table ends right there? And actually, I maybe want to put a little bit darker or make a little bit of a wash there, just to make it soft edged. And then the edge of this pie will be, I can go right into the plate because it'll be dark right there. I don't have to worry about the plate. It's a roadmap. Basically, it's a roadmap for you to paint the painting by having a value study. My teacher used to make us do it all the time, and you didn't get to paint anything until you actually did a value study, and a pencil one, not painting, not this. It had to be a pencil drawing, a value study. No, man, look at that. That's just horrible. Oh my God. I've never had it this bad. That's the worst I've ever had this paper. I mean, it looks like, and it kind of looks like granulation, but it's not. It's the paper. It's like dissolving or something. All right, so let's go to that's our lights. All my lights are done now. That's my light. I know it's not white like the scene, but I didn't want it just white up there. And if I do, well, maybe let's see what happens if I put white over that. If it'll take away some of those lines or the dots. I want to see what happens. This is also good to show you that I use white sometimes to get an effect in a wash. You know, I just put it in there and I drop it in, and it gives you those little fingers and stuff. And so this is pure white. This is titanium white, and I put it in there over top of this, and with a little bit of lavender. You know, it gives you like a pinkish color, but it also gives you granulation of white, and so it'll give you those little fingers that I kind of like. It's also taking away my little dots then too. So I'm not scared of using white, and I don't feel bad about using white either. Some people have always, you know, their teachers have told them in school, my teachers especially too, always said never use white, never use white. But you know, if you float it with the other pigment, it's a light pigment, and so it's still transparent. You can see through it because it's very washed, but it gives you like a pastel-y pink then. And I got rid of all my dots now. And how cool is that? So do not be afraid of using white. You just apply it into the water, not like thick like you're doing an acrylic painting or an oil painting. That you don't want to do until the very end, and then you can also do that too. It's like a gouache kind of look, like an oil painting or an acrylic, where you use it nice and thick. All right, there's my lights. My lights are done. That's it. Now let's go into our mediums and darks, large, medium, darks. And so what is that? That's my whole cup, my whole pie, my whole plate, and my whole shadow down here. And so I'm basically going to take it from the top down. Basically, that's always, to me, the easiest, is just start from the top. I am going to start with inside the cup. I'm going to put coffee in the cup, even though there is not coffee in the cup. Probably should be tea. What do you drink more with apple pie? Well, I like coffee with apple pie. So I'm going to put a brown in there, and so I'm just going to make my brown with orange and blue. Make a brown coffee, kind of. And I think it's still wet. Let me see. Yeah, it's still, no, not too bad. If it's wet, I can tell right away because it's going to run. It is still a little wet, so I'm getting a little bit of those fingers, but not too much. And then I got to make sure I use it thick. If I use the pigment thick, that's then it won't run so far. Even if it's a little damp, it will not run then. So there's my, wow, that's right up to the rim, isn't it? That was stupid. Okay, now it's right to the brim of the cup. They filled it up way too high. Okay, look at that. Oh well, I'll make it a soft edge now. And so how do I make it a soft edge? I'm taking it back out. I'm taking my brush and wipe some of it out. And so it has a look of that color, but it's not a hard edge. So it'll look like it's floating up there. And now I'm getting that dots there again. Now this cup is a white cup, but that doesn't mean that this has to be white. You know, it's going to be a dark color because the only thing that has to be a white is the edge. And so I'm going to put some white there because I went over that. I could rub it out later. I'm just going to put some white right here. That's the only spot where it's going to be white. And so I'm from there on. And see, I kind of used it like in a bad way. I kind of, because I went over. But whatever. I could have rubbed it out later too. I could have rubbed it out. Or I could put masking fluid there and all those spots where I think it's going to be white. But I don't worry about that. I just go in there and do what I want to do. Now I'm going to wet this whole cup with my big brush. That's a big area of medium. It's a big area of medium that's part of my dark. Time to pull out the gouache. You know, and you don't have to even use gouache. You can use watercolor white, just as good as a gouache white. They're both watercolor. One's gouache and one's, you know, titanium white watercolor. And they both work really well. Both of them work really pretty darn decent. So let's go with more pigment. Take my water out of my brush. Take like an orangey, yellow orange, let's see. With a little lavender to dull it down. Lavender is great for graying orange. It's just a nice color to gray orange with. And I'm just going to go right in here, do the cup. And look at how nice it's blending on itself, because I just wet it, right? And so it blends itself together really nicely. I can take a little purple in there too, make it a little bit darker on this side. It gets pretty dark on this side. I'm going to go up only to a spot where I keep the white edge of the rim of the cup. And now it's all wet, and now I play in here. I play until I get what I want. Maybe a little pink right here. Look how thick that is. This is jaune number 2. And that's like a very opaque color, but I'm applying it into water. And it's just going to float there. It's going to be transparent. Even though it's an opaque color, it has white in it. It's still going to be fine. And so I put a little lavender in here to dull it down a little bit. And there's a little shininess to it. So I'm going to put a couple of little lines going down to make it look kind of shiny. Shiny porcelain. I cannot do anything in here. The white is the white area. That has to be dark. Darker than the background. And it's got my eye. It's a little different color. It's getting almost too close to this color. So I got to darken it a little bit. Because it's going to dry lighter, and it looks right now. It looks right now, but that means it's wrong. Because it's got to be darker. It has to be darker so that when it dries, it will stay the color that you want it. This has to be in the dark. I can't stress that enough. If I'm even thinking about it in the shower in the morning, it's it's a very important thing. I worry about you guys, so I want to make sure that you know what I'm doing or what I'm saying. And if I want to know if you're doing it, I want to know if you're doing the. Oh, look at that! It's all wet, and so it's bleeding. But that's kind of like a lost edge. I think that's gonna be okay. I think I'm gonna find that that's going to be okay. I know I'm going right around this part because I'm not quite sure what I want the top of it to be because I'm making it up. You can just copy what you see there, but I want to make the top more of like the weave on an apple pie. And this got so wet and went into a damp area, so I'm not going to get a good line there. So that's okay. We'll come back later and straighten it out a little bit. The cup goes almost down to the plate. Now I'm going to get the dark or the mediums on here. And so that's a lot of like dough looking beige. And so I'm just going to go in there and I want sugar coated top of those, like powdered sugar. And so I'm just going to do the sides of these and then maybe over here. Do kind of orangey. Again, I'm using the same color. It's kind of the same colors, a little bit more orange in some spots. So I maybe put a little bit thicker orange. It's dough that was baked. And so there's some parts that are going to be a little bit darker. And there's going to be lighter parts. Maybe a little pink and, a little pink in there. Make it a little bit lighter. And the outer edge has a little white line, so I'm not going to go to the edge of the line. And then this is all gooey, right? It's all going to be apple. And so I definitely want some, it wouldn't be red, like you're not going to see unless there's some peels on the apple, but usually it depends on what also with the sauce or the syrup it's going to be. So let's see. I'm going to start out with it lighter. Well, actually, it's pretty dark, isn't it? Look at how dark it is, because they get kind of dark. But you have to keep a lot of shininess to that, and so you're either going to put it in with white paint later, or because it's wet. It's a wet, saucy thing, and so, but it has to be darker. Again, another different color or darker than the background. That has to happen. You cannot go around that. I can't state that enough. Like I said, it's like lighter parts first of the apple pie. Lighter parts first, and then you get to the darker parts. This goes right down to the fork right here. And then it seems like there's a lot of warmy red in this. And so I'm going to put a little bit of that in there now too. While it's wet, I can just go in like a burnt sienna type color with the yellows. A lot of little white hits for the show the syrupy, gooey cream filling. So there's some parts that are really yellow, but again, the little white dots actually are important to show that it's wet and it's gooey, but you still got to make sure everything is darker. And if you look at the picture, It's pretty almost black in some spots. Now I'm not gonna do that yet, guys. That's more for the detail. But overall, it's a very dark, a dark inner sides. Everything that's inner side here is pretty dark on the inside, and then you leave the nice lights on the outside of the apple. I should be putting the white light parts in first so that I can paint around that, make it all wet, and I can always put the white paint in there. Thanks Maria for asking everybody to like. Will those spots wipe out? Maybe do broken effect with background. They'll dry and they'll go away. It's I found that they will dry up, and all these little dots that are part of the paper being bad, they dry up, and then you don't see the dark because right now it's just a different wetness in parts of the picture. So they will dry up to where you won't see them, or just a little bit of them, and they won't be as prominent. But yeah, it's just something I don't like, and I'm gonna maybe contact Cheap Joe and say, hey, you know, this paper that you have there, or Crescent, or contact Crescent and say, you know, your paper, I got a whole thing of paper that gives me those little dots. I should have taken it. Well, I have a video of it, so I can just show them the video. So look at the nice creaminess and the orangeness and yellowness of this right now. So that's the lights. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to try to get some of that dark to make it soft edged. And so I'll go in there with a little purple and orange. Make it nice and dark and chewy, and then find all the little crevices inside here, and it's all wet, so I'll get nice soft edges. I don't need hard edges yet right in here, so I just want to get the tops underneath the little weave that you make with the dough. I just saw. I don't know if anybody watched Saturday morning. Well, usually, if you're watching Sunday morning, you're not watching Sunday morning because you're watching me. But I go back and I watch it later, the Sunday morning, and they had a person that did paintings. Was that? They did paintings of food. Yeah, it was all about food this last week, Sunday morning, on Channel 2, and they had a guy who just painted food. Like he'll do a burger or he'll do a taco. And it was really neat. And he's making some big, heavy duty money on these things. I'm thinking, why didn't we ever think of that? And that's what made me want to do a pie, is watching him on Sunday morning. It's like, wow, you know, it's fun to do little things that you're eating. And we're going to be all eating tomorrow like crazy. So take a picture of your food tomorrow. Take a picture and maybe do a painting and submit it to my channel there. I would love to see. Maybe you don't want to do pie. Maybe you want to do turkey plate of turkey and, you know, mashed potatoes and dumplings. We have dumplings a lot of times. You give, or like the cake, maybe for dessert, you do the dessert. See how I'm making it more thicker of apples and not so much of that one. I didn't like that layer of like cream cheese in there. I wanted it to be, and actually Cindy, I think, I don't know if you're online, but one of my students and friends from Minnesota said, you think I could do this, what I'm doing right now? And I go, yeah, you definitely can do that. I mean, I think it should be done because I think I like it better with more apple than with the cream cheese. But you do whatever you want. But look at how that looks, like nice and juicy, and look at the top. Isn't the top nice? How it's like sugar coated on top there, the little weave. And that I kind of made up on the run. So it was very fast because I got in here kind of a little late this afternoon because I just got home. And so I was like, oh man, I almost forgot. Like at 6 o'clock, I remembered that I had to do this on Wednesday. I was like, oh crap. So I was just drawing up really fast. So I'm not sure if it's exactly right, but. All right, so that's our pie for now without the details and out the darks. And now let's get the plate. Go right into the plate. Now the plate is kind of like I don't know, bluish. And I'm going to make it blue like that. I'm going to make it more blue. Not that blue. Oh my gosh, look at that Prussian blue. It's over everything. I'll gray it up. And there comes the train. All right, so that's kind of bluish. And it's still wet over there. So let's go over here first and do underneath the fork. It looks like a little bit drier. I know I have to have a hard edge here, but it's a big area of that. So I'm going to go around and wet this area. And then reflect onto the plate a little bit of this orange. Because you're going to reflect what's above it. Because this is a plate, a china plate. And so it's going to be very shiny. And anytime you have shiny water or something like a mirror or anything that's glass, it's going to shine what's above it. So those colors I just used, I will use down here too, along with the color of the actual plate. And also shadowing, like this, there's a little bit of this fork right here, probably has a little reflection underneath there. Reflection, not a shadow, because it's two different things, shadow and reflection. So this would be a shadow, and then there's a reflection. Those are two different things. And a lot of times people screw that up in the beginning. It's like the difference between the shadow and the reflection. Because sometimes they're both at one time, and so... And then we're going to do a little bit of this over here. Maybe a little bit different color underneath this part. Oops. Just a little bit lighter. Also, this is not drying very fast today. It's kind of weird. Okay, and then some, that's really dark there. The fork itself I'll do later, that in the detail stage. This big shadow here will be next after I do this part. I just wonder if that's dry enough. Yeah, it's dry enough now. And that's pretty dark up there, so put a little bit of red in that ugly color. Maybe purple. Yeah, because I use purple elsewhere, so a little purple up there. And watch this, nice and dark. I'm just going to make this dark. And the outer edge is hard. I want it to be hard, but inside I want then the things to float, because I want to have that soft edges to show the reflection. See how it goes from a dark to a light? But it's all kind of soft. So I'm going to wet it like this around this. Anytime you want to have a soft edge, you have to wet. It's all about water. That's how you get a soft edge. It's not about rubbing, scrubbing, and it's about how much water you have compared to pigment. And watercolor is the most wonderful medium because you never have to soften an edge. It happens on its own. You just let it do its thing. It does it on its own. I can't say how many times I say that. When you want a hard edge, you leave it dry and it stays nice and hard, the edge. You want it soft, you wet it. And then watch it soften itself. And that's called floating your pigment. That's my big thing, floating your pigment. You're floating the pigment and letting it do its job. And that's how come I don't like the dry things with the hairdryer, because you're speeding up the thing that it's supposed to be doing. You speed it up too much, and then it'll stay like hard or a little bit harder, and it'll stay like what you have, and it's not giving you, you're not giving it a chance to soften itself more and spread out and make a nice soft edge. Now this fork was put in here afterwards with AI. I gotta tell you right now, I put this fork in with AI, Photoshop AI, and this reflection is not right. I'm not sure where it's coming from. So that's just something that AI did and screwed it up. But I know that that's screwed up, so I'm just gonna make it better than what I had there. So look at that plate. It looks shiny, right? And now we get the thickness of it because there's a little white area here, and so I'm gonna keep a little white area that's shiny. And then I put the little bottom of the plate in there. Got a little bit thicker than it actually is, but that's okay. And then the shadow starts right about here, and this fork is right there, so I'm not going to start it right where it's supposed to start. I'm going to take it down a little bit. And the shadow underneath there is really, really warm for some reason. And again, I'm not sure, you know, is it reflecting? Because it looks like there's a light right here of light. And so I'm just going to make it... there's even a reflection right here of color. I'm gonna make it warm. At the cup. Look at the cup, how terrible the line is. It's good to show you how to make some of your changes when they made a mistake. So this, I'm taking any color, it's just whatever, this dirty color I had here, I'm just taking that. And I'll play with it as I'm going around. You don't always have to put the exact color down that you want. You know, you just put enough something down so you know where you're going, and then apply more pigment. Like down here is going to have to apply more pigment, but I just want to see first what colors I can put in here. And then also I got to get a really dark in here for the bottom of the plate. And then just let that float into the bottom here. I don't care what's down here. That's all just really dark. And so I'm going to pick up a lot of pigment. I'm looking for a really dark. And so I'm just going to make it warm dark. And look at how I'm going to all these colors, all of them. Let's go all and see if I get see what I get. Okay, maybe a little bit darker. Maybe some black in there too. Because right here, it's almost super, super dark. And so I'm going to pick a lot of pigment. And see how that's not even enough pigment because it's so wet. So I got to pick up more pigment. Make some brown maybe. Just put it right in here, and then I can tell how much pigment I need for it to stay where it's going to be at. I don't want it to bleed too far, and that's too warm. You know, well, maybe not. It's okay. I don't always know, because people ask me, well, what exact color should I use there? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I just go with what I do, and then I look, and I say, is that too red? And if it's too red, I'll put some blue in there. If it's too blue, I'll put some red in there, or some warm colors. And so I just practice with it on the actual painting and look at it. And if I think that I see that it turned out a lot grayer, so if I want to make it more warm, then I'll put some red in there. You know, you can just float stuff in there. And if it's like too ugly a color, then I'll put some really bright color in. So here, we take some bright orange now, put that in there and see what it is. I don't know exactly a lot of times what color I'm going to use. I just do it and then look at it. I love that apple filling. I bought an apple pie and an apple tart for Thanksgiving, but I might have open up one of those pies. Yeah, and take a bunch of pictures of it. I've been starting to look at everything now for, you know, photographs and what I can find for everything, especially when I'm going around nowadays. And I just was at, I had lunch with my brother, and we were talking about my mom and all these things. And as I'm looking around, I'm looking, well, I should be taking pictures. I'm constantly thinking of what can I take a picture of? What can I do to make a nice picture? Now this, look how there's a reflection of this blue back here into the table. If you look at that, see there, there's a little bit of blue right there. So I'm just going to take solid blue. I'm going to take blue and white. And it's wet. It's really, really wet. And so I'm just going to put it into the water. Thick amount of pigment. But it's not thick, it's not floating. So it's still floating, but it's just a bright light color. You know, and that's watercolors are always so afraid of putting light on top of dark. But as long as it's wet and it's floating, it's fine. It actually looks cool. I mean, it's neat to put light on top of dark. Now I just rubbed it out, so that was stupid. Let me just, that's too bright. Don't be afraid of putting light on top of dark. As long as it's wet and it's floating pigment. That's what you got to realize. It's got to be floating. And I'm putting, this is like a little bit dry right here. So I'm putting more water than it's down. And so that's always a danger too. Is putting more water down than it's already down there. Here it's really wet. There it's just, it was starting to get dry. So you're going to get watermarks if you put too much water in there. That's kind of cool. Putting a little blue in there, right? Maybe do a little more. I should have used more of the compose, not the horizon. Horizon was too harsh a blue, and so the composed blue is more of a duller blue. Well, I think it's looking pretty decent. Now I think we're ready for our details. I mean, what else do you see that is not detail and that's big? The handle of the cup, I can maybe do that, but I was waiting for this to dry so I can show you how I'm going to fix this, but it's still a little damp. Hey, Shanna. Well, those spots, that was Sherry. Wow, I can't believe how many people came on at the Wednesday. I was wondering if I should, like on my Sunday morning, I'm starting to think, because when I was in doing it from my hotel room the other day when I was an hour ahead, or yeah, I was an hour ahead because I was in East Coast time. I was wondering if I should, like, maybe instead of doing it at 9, do it at 8:30. Because it got kind of late, I thought to myself, for the Sunday one, and do it on like 8:30 here instead of 9, and that way it'd only be 9:30 up there instead of 10, because they usually see me at 10. All right, so let me show you how I'm gonna get rid of this white right here, or this is right out. I think it's almost dry. Yeah. I'm gonna try first with water. I'm just gonna tickle it with water because that got wet and it was damp, and so I got the thing. But if I just tickle with water to the edge there, and then I can get rid of that blossom. And then I could also use white with that color, and I can float it on top. And a lot of times that will take care of it, white. But you gotta float it. Remember, you gotta float it. You can't. It's got to be floated. Otherwise, it'll be too harsh. And oh, I just made a water droplet there. Darn it. Because floating the white then makes it feel like it's the paper, because it's not like a harsh, really thick thing. It's just floating and it's opaque, so it covers up what's below there. You just like watch here. I'm gonna do it like how you're not supposed to do it, really thick. Because if you do it really thick, then for one, you're gonna get hard edges, and it's also too thick, and it doesn't look like the rest of the painting, because the rest of the painting is floating, and so you want that look of floatiness to it. Floatiness, I'm not sure if that's a word, but floatiness. So I put water there, and then I float it. I float in the pigment, and so that it goes back to being floated pigment. Now when I do the details, I'm gonna probably get those dark speck there. And this handle is really ugly. But I'm gonna put a little dark here. A little shadow there. All right, so detail time. Details, what do you use for details? For one, I use my smaller brush. And I think I'm gonna start with the fork, because it's the biggest of the small. And wow, is that brush bad? Where's my other good brush? There it is. There's a bad round brush. I wanted to use one of these brushes, brushes but there's really not placed. Maybe I'll do it in here. Maybe I'll do it inside a pie. Because I really, the sword brush, the dagger brush, I really love that. I've been trying to use that everywhere now. And look at how my thing doesn't look shiny anymore, because it all kind of let up. And now the texture is going away a little bit. See how it's going away a little bit, but they're still there. There are a couple of spots in there. But what can you do? Let's take our bigger brush. I don't know where my other small one is. So let's go in here and get my detail now. And so the darks, it's usually dark details. And so I'll do the burnt edges, little edges here. And kind of follow what's there in the picture. I'm going to kind of follow that. And there's some orange. And I'm going to do it exactly like that, because again, like I said, I changed it myself a little bit, and I wanted to see how I wanted to need more of the weave top of a pie. But I can pick up something that I see there, a little bit of what's there, like the edges. And you gotta know, like, what if this is on top, there's gonna be a little line of dark underneath. Right here, there's gonna be a little line. I'm going to see through the pie a little bit in some spots. And like, where can you see through the thing and see the inside, and where can you see the top? What has a little bit of... It's amazing how nothing doesn't look like anything until you finally get the nice, hard, dark details. Like even in coffee, I can just a little hard right here this time. And it's still pretty high up there, but that's okay. And you're just going to get all the little small things now. All the things that you see in the photograph. All the things that you don't see in the photograph that you know will make it better. And that's by learning how to, see and memorize. I can't wait until I get that book written for you guys and teach you guys all how to work from your imagination. And just do it from your mind's eye. I got lucky that YouTube reminded me you were live. Oh, that's good. I wish it would have done that for me when I was sitting there watching TV, eating dinner. I didn't eat dinner. I was about to eat dinner. I just threw a pizza in the oven, and I was just about. I'm like thinking, oh wait a second. Oh my gosh, I gotta do my thing tonight. And here, where I want texture, like of the crust, I'm just gonna like shake. I'm gonna be that nervous shake. And I'm just gonna shake in there, and man, it's a little bit too much there, but I can just shake it a little bit and just make it look a little bit more crusty. And then underneath the goo coming out of here, I'm just going to put a little dark hard edges underneath there. And then down here, I want to have a little bit more texture for the crust in the bottom. And there's little air pockets you see, and so I'm just going to put little dots. What I did is I took my brush and go like this onto the, and see how what I did to my brush? I made it not straight, and so I'm just going to tap it down. Make it kind of, you know, textury. One way of getting texture. I'm going for some purpley red for the inside of the pie. Like I said, look at the pie. Look at how dark some of the spots are. And so I'm doing the shadowing underneath some of the apple slices. I'm just doing underneath the apple slices, and I just made it up. I didn't look at a thing. I just figured there's gonna be a bunch of apple slices, and you take the darks and make the dark slices that way. It's all about light and darks and creating shapes. Like when you do rocks, you do this rocks the same way. The top is light. Now this is like I said, this is very wet looking, and so you're gonna have to put the white dots in there later. Like I have a few right here, but they'll look really cool when you start getting some of those white dots in there, because that way it makes it look liquidy, because that liquid is shiny. Like this fork can have some shine to it too, and there's a dark part of the fork too that's in reflection, like the little ends of the fork. And so this you got to be a little bit more, you know, a little more careful with, and definitely have to be dry. So you get nice hard edges. I'm just thinking, I want to get a gray, a dark, just go like this. Your whole palette, you're going to get a gray, let me tell you. All those colors mixed together will always give you a beautiful gray, and it's not mud. People always call it mud. It's not mud. It's a gray. It's a beautiful gray, by the way. And I should go to a point, and I should have drawn this better. But I was in a rush when I drew this. I only had half an hour to get ready and do everything. And the side here. Okay, that's not the greatest fork I've ever done, but oh well. And then this whole thing is a little dark right here. Put a little blue in there, put a little blue and some reflected warmth colors into. The edge is light right here. Can you imagine that? Look at the edge is light, and then here it gets a little dark. Here's a little bit dark on top. Put a little blue in that too. Put a little warmth in there too. Throw a little bit of warmth in it. Over here we have a little bit of, let's say, put a little bit of that in there. Shiny stuff is very reflective, and it also is like goes really hard, darks and lights. A lot of them really quickly. Makes a lot of hard darks and lights. Just gonna wipe this out a little bit to get it a little bit more together, where I don't need to see everything perfect. You know, make it a little bit blurry. When there's a problem with your drawing, blur it. I find that to be the best thing if you blur it and make it out of focus. Here we're gonna have a nice hard edge in the bottom of the cup. And there's this shadow. See, I didn't put the shadow in yet, but I'm gonna put the shadow in. I get negative paint around the front of that too to get the light parts. Let's get the back of the spoon first. And I'm gonna switch it from light to dark right here. Only because it's not that way, but I think it'll be better if I do it that way, so that I juxtaposition the lights and darks. See, when you go one way and it's not dark enough or whatever, then just juxtaposition it. You don't have to follow the, sometimes you don't have to follow exactly what's in the photograph and still make it work. Because nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know that you, as long as you, I know, you wouldn't see it unless if you had that light against light, it doesn't work. And so now let's get our shadow back here. And the shadow color is going to be whatever color is on this is like kind of a beige. It's going to be a darker beige. But then I can also, once it's wet, I can put the blue from the sky in there too. So let's first go and get the shape of our fork and stuff and wet it with the shadow. So I'm wetting it with a really ugly color brown. That's okay. We can do that. And then I'm going to take that blue. Remember, the blue is in there reflecting. It's reflecting there, and look what happened here. I got watermarks on the top. Oh well. That's okay. But now we're going to go around the front of the spoon and show the light part of the spoon. I'm going a little bit slower. Detail you got to go slower with, and take your time. Detail's important to make it look like whatever it is the object is, or the shadow or whatever. So take your time on when it comes to that part. You don't have to rush that part because that's all you have left is to do the details, and so spend some time on it. I am going to put a little bit of that reflective blue again, like I did down here, which really turned out not that great, but do that right here. Now it's wet, and anytime something is wet, you go back in, you can just float it on top. It's so great about watercolor. I love that you can do that. You can just go back in later and just throw it into the puddle of water and watch it how beautiful it looks. Okay, what else? Oh, this background. So now I'm going to do the background, even though, you know, I should probably get it in the beginning, but you can get it at the end too. I'm going to take a blue grays, and I'm just going to kind of go back here. It's going to be hard-edged, but it'll identify the shape of my cup for one. And it goes soft right here, but I'm going to have to do it hard first. I'm going to wet it with anything again. I'm going to put that blue in there again, but I'm just going to wet it with any color, dirty color I have on my brush. Get the hard edge on top of the front of the coffee mug. And then to get the soft edge. So now I identified the shape of the cup, the front of the cup, right? But this is in a soft edge, so I can also add water afterwards. So take it and just see what you do. Just add water afterwards. And let it float into that, and just help it along a little bit, but it's going to float over. It's going to float over, soft edge, instantly. How easy that is. Now my photograph, I'm not sure if oh, there it is. So over here now it goes and it gets soft edge too, but hard edge around the cup. The cup has to be hard edge. So it identifies my cup really nicely. And I put a couple, and I'm not sure what this stuff is back here, but it doesn't matter what it is. Make it up. It doesn't need to be exactly what's back there. I do like the fact that it's taking this part right here and showing me the light part of it. And so that's the only reason I would do it is right here. I want it to look like the cup is light right there. And I'm going to put white paint there too, because I kind of totally messed that up right there. So I'll be putting white paint there. Use some of the colors that I have down here. Use some of those colors in there. To get back here, and we'll go down. That's too dark. That's way too dark. But that's okay. We're going to wet this right here to make it a soft edge. And there I had a soft edge before, or a hard edge before, but I'm just going to rub that a little bit, tickle it a little bit. Take some clear water and just get rid of that mark right there. And then make this soft. Hard edge around the cup. Maybe around the handle too. Well, the handle has a little bit of lightness right there. Take this down. And it kind of goes right here and kind of comes over this way. Look at how dark it gets right here on top of that thing. And again, I don't want hard edges here, so I'm just going to take afterwards and just wet it after. Just wet it a little bit farther ahead, and it stays soft. Now I notice there's some really dark right there. And do I want to put that in? Yeah, why not? It's like, it's not a hard edge, but it is a dark right here. I gotta use more pigment because it's going to bleed into this handle. So in this part of here, I'm going to wet it a little bit. Comes down on this side. So use thick pigment. Get rid of the water in your brush. Get rid of the water. I don't need water in my brush right now. I need to have a lot of pigment there, and so it doesn't bleed all over the place. And it's wet right now, and then I can manipulate it around this hard edge right here. And then it looks like there's a shadow back here too that's casting. Well, that's not actually casting it, but I'm going to make it cast it. I gotta make it bluer, more color. Okay, and this I want to make soft edged. Just make that bleed over that way. Now there's a big dark line there. I'm not gonna put that in. I don't think I need that. I will make my cup handle a little bit darker underneath here. I'm going to put some lines here. I just don't think this is shiny enough, this cup. And I'm going to wet the edge because I do want it soft edge. I don't want, well, it's pretty light, and so it will not read as hard edge because it's so not very contrasty, so it'll just look like reflections instead. And now I'm going to do a few more darks underneath the cup itself. Underneath the plate, I mean. Down here, a little bit darker. A little bit more. A little bit heavier dark down here. Same thing with the fork, a little bit darker and just nice and direct brush strokes. This cup is bothering the heck out of me. So let's get the tops of it a little bit dark. All right, so next is, and this shadow just didn't turn out so good. So I'm going to show you how to take it. We have time? Yeah, 5 minutes. I'm going to show you how this didn't get dark enough, right? Look at that's not dark enough at all. So I'm going to just re-wet it with some color in my brush. Re-wet it softly. Just take water, put it over that. Go to the spot because it looks like there's a little reflection right here of the plate. And now pick up more pigment. Pick up more pigment and not so much water anymore. And just get it darker than you wanted it before. Because it just was not dark enough. And lay it in there. Lay it in. There you go. A little bit dark right here too. I'm going to take a little bit of dark on the cup. I'm going to hurry up here so we can get done in time. I still want to show you how to use the white for the making it thing, so we have time. I'm going to make this a little bit darker. Shoot it up into that light area there. I know it's kind of reddish, but that's okay. We could just like be a little bit darker. A bit of red in there. It is porcelain, so it can reflect a lot of different things in there. And I wanted to put steam out of there, but maybe I can do that. So now it's white time. Time to put the white in. And I keep on forgetting I always squeeze out fresh white. Really, with what titanium and white watercolor, you need to not. You don't have to, but I think it's really good to put in some fresh white because it just is nicer to make it thick. Oh, I still want to do that in the long brush. Do we have time? Yeah, 3 minutes. So we're gonna go in here. Take the white now. Because you want it to be opaque and you want to kind of cover up area. Like this little part of the cup is very, very light. So we'll make that nice and light. The front of the cup right here has a little bit of a nice highlight on it and little dots and stuff, and so we can do that. Now in here, it's great because you have these little dots and where it's wet. And it's usually on the corner where it hits the corner of the apple, you know, and put a lot in there. It's okay. It's like, it's wet and it's going to reflect. And it can even reflect lighter than what should be there because it's reflecting from back. And you can also take a little bit of, you know, the lavender in there and also put the like a lavender dots and little lines. And put a little dark lavender in the top here, the sprinkles or the. See how nice that looks when you put the little hits of white, and it makes it look nice and juicy. And the edges, because it's like the edge again, remember the edge? The edge is shiny, and so I can put a little shininess into there, little dots. In the plate itself, you can do an edge right here. I can make it white, a little light. It's all shiny, and shiny is good. A little in the fork, a little bit. On the cup, it's not so much, but look at right here how much light there is on the side of the, where it hits the dark of the cup. That could be a little bit darker right there. How much time? 1 minute. Real quickly. Thanks for staying around so much, guys. And thanks for, again, dropping in on a Wednesday. I didn't think anybody's going to show up today. A little bit darker right there. Soften the edge. Boom. And this one I would sign right here. This seems a little bit bright right here. A little wash right here. Not so perfect. You could also put like texture on the table, like what do you call it? The wood grain. You could do that on here too, like I'm doing right now. A little wood grain. And there you have it. I think that's it. This should be a little bluer. One more thing. It's 7:30, but right on the dot. So we're gonna make this a little bit darker right here. And we're good. Yummy art. Thanks, Sylvia. It is yummy. Now I'm gonna go have dinner and I'm gonna be like, I want my dessert though. But that's a pretty thick pie too. I maybe should have made it a little bit smaller, the pie, because that's a lot of apples. And I was gonna put a whipped cream on top, or ice cream like Alamo, but we didn't. So you do what you want, and if you want to put some of that on there, go right ahead. And I'll finish my Sprecher cream soda, and we'll have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tomorrow, have a wonderful time tomorrow, and I will see you on Sunday morning. And have no idea what I'm going to do for that. But have a great holiday, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Bye-bye.